الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، نتابع درسنا في قراءة كتاب الأجوبة الوداعية على الأسئلة النسائية. We'll continue our class in going over the book al-Ajubah al-Wadi'iyya, the answers of Sheikh Muqbil and Hadi al-Wad'i rahimahullah on the questions from the women. لازلنا في باب الفتاوى التي تتعلق بالمرأة الحائض والحامل والنفساء. We're still in the chapter regarding the verdicts connected to the matters of the women who are on their menses, and regarding pregnancy and women who are pregnant and also bleeding after giving birth. تقول السائلة: إذا ألقت المرأة مضغة أو علقة هل له حكم النفساء؟ So the woman, this is a question. If a woman, she was to abort, she was to lose her pregnancy and have a miscarriage, not abort. If she was to have a miscarriage, and what comes out is a fetus that still is not, is a piece of flesh basically, does not have the shape and the form of a child yet. Is the bleeding afterwards, is it considered to be a nafas, bleeding after giving birth? Does it have the same ruling? قال الشيخ رحمه الله نعم. So the Sheikh rahimahullah said yes, indeed. لعموم الأدلة, because the proofs, and لعموم الأدلة لعموم الأدلة المتعلقة بالنفاس, meaning yes, because the proofs, meaning the hadith connected to the bleeding after giving birth, is general. They are general and not specific to giving birth to a living child. The same rulings they take, the same rulings and the same hadith, they take effect regarding having a miscarriage. وقال النووي رحمه الله في الروضة, النووي رحمه الله said in his book الروضة: وسواء في حكم النفاس كان الولد كامل الخلقة أو ناقصها أو ميتا أو ألقت مضغة أو علقة. وقال القوابل إنه مبتدأ خلق الآدمي. So An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he said that the ruling regarding nafas, regarding bleeding after giving birth, the same rulings, they take effect whether the child was born complete in its creation and its form, even if it was born alive, the child was born alive, or a child was born with an incomplete form, such as missing limbs, or other than that, may Allah protect all of us, or it was dead. So she gave birth to a stillborn child. أو ألقت مضغة, or she gave birth, or rather she had a miscarriage, and what came out was a piece of flesh, or even a small clot of blood from the womb. All of that, he said, all of that is the beginning of the creation of the human being. So all of that, they take the same rulings. وقال في المجموع, and he said in his book المجموع: فرع قال أصحابنا لا يشترط في ثبوت حكم النفاس أن يكون الولد كامل الخلقة. He said this is a subsection that the people who take his same madhab, who are upon his same madhab, they said that it is not a condition in regards to considering the bleeding after giving birth to be nafas, to be the normal bleeding after giving birth, that the child is born with a complete creation. وَلَا حَيًّا, nor is it a condition that it is born, that the child is born alive. بل لو وضعت ميتا. Rather, if his mother, she had a miscarriage and she gave birth to a stillborn child, that child, أو لحما تصور فيه صورة آدمي, or a piece of flesh that looks like a human being, أو لم يتصور, or that doesn't even look like a human being. وقال القوابل إنه لحم آدمي ثبت حكم النفاس. If the doctors or they ruled that it was flesh of a human being, then she takes the ruling of being in her nafas, in her bleeding after giving birth. قال هكذا صرح به المتولي وآخرون. وقال الماوردي ضابطه أن تضع ما تنقضي به العدة وتصير به ولد. نعم. وقال محمد بن إسماعيل الأمير رحمه الله في منحة الغفار على ضوء النهار, likewise he mentioned and he quoted والحمل لغة يصدق على غير المتخلق. Pregnancy in the language, linguistic meaning, is considered even for the flesh, the piece of flesh or the fetus that does not have the form of a human yet. ولم يأتي عن الشارع اشتراط المتخلق. There's nothing from the legislation that mentions that it is a condition that it must have the form of a human. والآيات وردت بلفظ وضع الحمل. And rather, the verses, they came with the mentioning of aborting the pregnancy or giving birth to that which is in the womb. Meaning whether it's alive, whether it's a child, living child, or a stillborn child, or in this case, she had a miscarriage and the child came out. As long as the child came out of her womb, regardless of the situation, and she has bleeding, then it is considered to be bleeding after giving birth, and it takes that ruling. Now, وقال الشيخ رحمه الله وقد خرج عبد بن حميد عن الحسن وابن سيرين وإبراهيم النخعي وقتادة أنها إذا أسقطت المرأة. So he mentioned several of the Salaf rahimahumullah that they mentioned إذا أسقطت المرأة أو وضعت علقة أو مضغة. If the woman, she had a miscarriage and what came out was a piece of flesh or even a clot of blood, فقد انقضت العدة. فهذه أقوال السلف تؤيد البقاء على المعنى اللغوي. So she is considered, so if she was to have a miscarriage, and what comes out is either a child that has the form of a human being, or a fetus that has the form of a human being, or does not have the form of a human being, or that it is just a piece of flesh, or that it is a clot of blood of a human being, then if she was in her iddah, if she was, for example, divorced, and she was pregnant, or her husband has died while she was pregnant, and she became pregnant, and she gave birth to a child. Of course, her waiting period, her iddah, in which she's not allowed to get married, ends with her giving birth, as is known. So if she was to have a miscarriage, and as we mentioned, regardless of what comes out, whether it is a piece of flesh or clot of blood, or a fetus that has the form of a human being or does not have the form of a human being, regardless of what the condition is, her waiting period ends. Her iddah ends. Now, فهذه أقوال السلف, those are the statements of the righteous predecessors, may Allah have mercy on them. تؤيد البقاء على المعنى اللغوي. It keeps the meaning and it preserves the meaning of the linguistic, it preserves the linguistic meaning of giving birth. Now, والدليل of the what النفاس is. والدليل على من اشترط التخلق. So the one who says that the condition for the bleeding to be considered bleeding post birth or giving birth, they have to bring forth their proof. نعم. هذا أيضا يدلنا كما مر معنا في دروس سابقة أنه لا ينبغي ولا يجوز للمرأة أن تسقط الحمل إلا بالشروط التي ذكرها أهل العلم، وهي أن يذكر الأطباء المسلمون العدول منهم أنها إذا بقيت على حملها أنه ليس عندهم شك أنها ستهلك، أو يغلب عندهم الظن بقوة أنها ستهلك، يعني أن الأم ستموت. فحينئذ قال بعض أهل العلم يجوز أن تسقط الحمل في هذه الحالة حفاظا على حياتها، لأنها هي الأصل، فيجوز أن تسقط الحمل، وهذا قبل أن ينفخ فيه الروح، يعني عند كونه مضغة أو علقة، وليس عندما يتخلق وتنفخ فيه الروح. So this also shows us that it is impermissible to abort pregnancy, except with what the people of knowledge mentioned as a condition. That the doctors, trustworthy Muslim doctors, they agree that if she was to keep her pregnancy, then they were certain or almost certain that she will die because of an illness or the likes. They were certain that the mother will die if she was to keep her pregnancy. And it was during the beginning of her pregnancy, before the soul is blown in the child. So before the fetus becomes in the shape and the form of a human being, and the soul is blown in it. Now, in that case, some of the people of knowledge, they say she is allowed to abort her pregnancy. والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين.